folks, you know, I kind of am shy of agendas, but the idea is to provide some flexibility on the topics. The public has been duly noticed of the meeting. What I have had is a conversation with the auditor, Michael Chadwick, about a follow-up topic that originated through dialogue with the administration, was brought to the Assembly's attention at the last meeting relating to some invoices and outstanding issues on the Centennial program. So what I've asked Mike to do is repackage that sort of in a format that can be brought into the agenda of the Assembly, which will be put on the addendum tomorrow for just general acceptance. I haven't seen the audit; it's here right now, so I'll send it out. I didn't do a preview of it, kind of on purpose. Mike, if there's somebody at the administration that needs to see that, it'll come out electronically after this meeting. I'm not going to vote on acceptance or any of the items in there. I would want to provide some closure to the outstanding items that need to be paid. Mike has copies of those. If you guys want to look at that, we would want to address that item as a follow-up item on the Assembly. So the two items is to take a presentation from Mr. Chadwick on the audit findings, a little bit expanded over what you may have read in the paper. Thanks, Devin. The other things relating to the invoices duly paid, there's a little bit of more information as it relates to available income, perhaps to offset that, but we'll go on that as we can. So right now, if there's any questions?
Hi, Mr. Chairman. So is this document here different than the one that was submitted to Ms. Lee Green?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I read that one. Okay.
Entirely rewritten, and
okay.
again, I apologize for not sending it out
That's okay.
Ahead of time, but we'll just get a feeding of it from Mike right now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You bet. If there's any reason why you think it shouldn't be put on the agenda, go ahead, Barbara.
Are those documents public?
I'm sorry, yes, they are.
I want to make sure they're public.
And you'll do electronic version too. That's always helpful to have available for them too. Thanks, Barbara. Okay, Mike, go ahead.
All right, well, thank you. First, I just want to clarify that this was not an audit. Instead, it was a brief review. The review helps determine whether additional work or effort is justified. An audit requires a study or evaluation of internal controls and a much more detailed procedures. In the memo that you have here, we have provided some additional information and some updates. The previous memo is found on page 4. So really what we're dealing with is the first 2 pages here.
And that was the one you're referencing was written to the administration?
Yes.
Primarily. Okay.
Yes. As you'll see, Mr. Starr, the chair, he requested that we provide some additional information and some updates regarding the Centennial celebration. We have provided a couple of tables. Here on the first page, you can see the approved Centennial funds that were approved. On the table, we show when it was approved or appropriated, and if there was a grant, we show that too. So, for example, on the very first item there on table 1, page 1, the Anchor Centennial was appropriated on 8/6/13. There was a grant approved on 8/20/13 for $500,000 for the Alaska Commanders Fund. Turn to page 2, you'll see that we have outlined the Centennial donations and sponsorships that came through. On this table may be incomplete. Other organizations may have received Centennial donations or sponsorships that we're not aware of, but these are the ones we identified. There was one that was listed as a sponsor on the Centennial's webpage, GCI. However, we found no contribution from GCI in the accounts that we reviewed.
Can you clarify what this chart is then? Is that, you're saying that Rasmussen wrote a check to the municipality for $500, or did we write a check to them for $500?
Which table are you looking at?
On page 2. the one you referenced.
Page 2, the recipient was Alaska Humanities Forum. Rasmussen Foundation wrote a check for $500,000 to the Alaska Humanities Forum. In addition to the $500,000 that we provided as shown on table 1.
Okay, so we gave the Humanities Forum basically $1 million is what between the two.
we don't have anything showing that it came
It
through
was a
us.
grant,
Yeah, it was
through
fine.
their normal grant making process.
Okay, thank you.
So these are the ones we identified. As I was saying, GCI, according to the Centennial webpage, it shows that they made a contribution or a sponsorship or something, but we could not find that in any of the things that we looked at. We did contact GCI, but we haven't come back.
Amy has a question.
Did you just look at monetary contributions, or could it possibly have been like an advertising, free advertising or something?
We were looking, Mr. Bauer, through the chair, we were looking at the monetary contributions. It could have been something in kind, but when we contacted GCI, they didn't know. They were going to research it, and we haven't heard back from them.
So in a broader question, was there sort of references to any sort of in-kind trades that you could see through memos or other expense line items?
Mr. Starr, no, we did not see anything that referenced in-kind contributions.
Okay.
There may have been, but we didn't find anything.
Fine.
We have some updates since our previous memo that was dated on December 2nd. We just made some minor updates to the table, table 3, but you'll note that the second item there on table 3, that $2,500 due to visit Anchorage was removed from the table. On December 10th, we received notification from Visit Anchorage that they have waived this fee. So that we remove that from the table. Table 4, in our previous memo, we showed $500,000 in potential revenue.
5,000.
Or 5,000, not 500. Thank you. $5,000 potential revenue. The Sister Cities Commission provided proof that the $5,000 was given to the Cook Inlet Historical Society.
Director. Great. Ms. Gray Jackson
Thank
has
you,
a
Mr.
question.
Chairman. Back to the visit Anchorage and the $2,500. When did they waive the fee? Did they waive the fee after the first review? Or did they waive it, back some time ago?
We heard a rumor that the fee had been waived. We confirmed it on the 10th. When we called them, they said, sure, you bet, we'll waive that fee.
So it was waived after the review?
It
Sounds
appears
like
so.
it.
It sounds like it, but I can't confirm.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Table 5, we made just a minor update. On page 3, the diverted revenue that we refer to from the Alaska Destination Specialists. On December 14th, just a couple of days ago, Alaska Destination Specialists responded to a purchasing department request to provide a copy of the $19,654 invoice. Their response is right here. We then asked for clarification for the response. Basically, we asked, could you please provide us documentation? Because they had not yet provided any documentation. We were asked for a copy of that invoice, and we did not receive it. You see the response here. So the the short story is, we still have not received a copy of the invoice for the $19,654. In addition, the purchasing department the contract that was entered into was a not to exceed contract of $30,000. We do not have anything in the files that we reviewed showing that change order to exceed that contract.
I have a question, and then Mr. Hrabowski does too. The outstanding invoices that we have to pay in terms of the assembly request for appropriation, is this one of them?
No.
Okay, so let me ask you, the 19,000 change from the $49,000 initial invoice, they're not claiming that we owe them that? Is that what maybe I'm confused here. But they originally said their service charges were going to cost them $49,000, they changed it to $29,000. So did they just say that the scope of services changed? You say that the event changed, but
That's the issue. We don't have any documentation to support that additional amount beyond the $30,000.
okay.
And how much were they actually paid, Mike?
Yeah, I guess.
$29,002.39 according to the PO, and then $19,000 was sent from the PAC
I
over
see.
to Alaska
they've already been paid.
I get it.
And the issue is whether they were paid beyond what their contract allowed.
And their contract was a not to exceed amount of $30,000.
Yeah.
Originally, it was then revised down to $29,002.39, and we have nothing beyond that. There's simply nothing in the file that authorizes anything beyond that.
And obviously, the $30,000 number is significant because that's
It's
the,
appropriation for assembly.
it's the limit under which a sole source can be granted without assembly approval.
Lisbon Gabowski can ask a question, and then I want to come back to the overall concept of those offline transactions. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you articulated some of it, but I just wanted to be very clear because I think the first memo that you sent was very clear. The conversation right now is a little bit, I just want to reiterate what happened for anybody who might be listening. So essentially, as Mr. Abbott pointed out, there was a not to exceed $30,000. They were paid for what services they rendered in the amount of $29,002.39.
Correct.
From ticket sales from the PAC, that money would typically have come to the municipality.
Correct.
For some reason, it was diverted to this organization.
Right.
And so, without documentation, it would appear that $19,654.25 is in their possession, which really shouldn't be municipal money. That's what it would appear.
It would appear to be that because we have no invoice for that $19,000.
Okay, so my question then is to Mr. Abbott, and I don't know if you know or not, but you're the source of all knowledge, so I'm guessing. So what recourse, essentially, if we were issued no bill, what recourse do we have to collect the money back?
Limited. If they did the work for which they were asked to do, it's our problem, not theirs. We owe them the money.
If they can produce a bill.
And demonstrate, right, if they can demonstrate that they did the work that they were asked to do, the issue of whether or not, if a municipal official directed that they do work, then they would be, and they did that work, then typically the municipality would be on the hook to do it, even if that authorization was not internally done correctly.
So in this case, we're talking, I think it was Anastasia, the receptionist, was that who it was? Who basically said send the money to them?
I have no idea.
Well, in our audit reports and in our special studies, we don't list names.
Well, it was the executive assistant. Is that, let's put it that way. Is that what
In the mayor's office.
that it was the mayor's office and executive assistant? That's what I believe. I remember reading.
Yes.
Okay, so at this point, from
To the former mayor.
yeah, at this point, from my perspective, if this money was erroneous, I mean, I look at it like the bank. It's happened to me before, where all of a sudden I look at my bank account and somebody else's check was deposited into my bank account, and I realized I had too much money. So I went to the bank and I said, hey, what is this deposit of, a couple $1,000? It's not mine. If the bank had told me, if I went and pointed that out, when they figured it out, they would have just taken it because it wasn't lawfully mine. So if this organization can't prove that we actually owed them the money, I would assume there would be some sort of recourse from a legal perspective if they don't voluntarily give it back. That's where I'm going. So I guess my question, just to be 100% clear, there's been no documentation that you've seen thus far that indicates that this money was actually owed to this organization.
We have no documentation beyond the $29,000 invoice that was.
Thank you.
I guess, not to put Mr. Abbott on the spot, but does the performing arts have the opportunity to provide grants? Let's assume that the $19,000 to be put on the same list as the grant. Are they allowed to just provide a grant to another agency?
Well, they have a budget, and they're a separate organization. It's a private nonprofit that runs this, and they have a contract with us.
Yeah.
And they run the Performing Arts Center on our behalf. So we don't approve their budget.
I get you.
They can make their spending decisions pretty much however they want, or, sure, there's some legal bounds on it, but they're incorporated, they have
Yeah.
articles and bylaws, and that's
So,
how
because there's
they.
a couple instances, I appreciate the answer. What I can sense out of here is that the program, the program itself, the centennial celebration, if you will, is larger than perhaps the assembly thought in terms of the amount of money that was going to go into run it, partly because and I don't know that it's wrong, I believe it's probably the right answer, is to go out to the community, as Mr. Sullivan, Mayor Sullivan told us he was going to do, which was get their engagement. So the idea that there's additional direct grant monies sent in and around the program itself, out of control of even perhaps the mayor's office, I think that's probably okay with me so far, except when it relates into sort of offline bookkeeping. Is that what you're seeing here in terms of to me, it's a tad inappropriate to do an offline check by calling them up and say, hey, we know we owe you the money, but get your check from that. There was another instance in here where that occurred, where bills were paid with a direct check bypassing the municipal checking account. What was the other one?
There was a business account that was used, and all municipal funds, both revenues and expenses, should flow through people's office. There shouldn't be any outside business account. When the auditors come, the external auditors,
Yeah.
they're looking at people's office.
But besides the program manager's account that was set up after she left employment of the office, there was another invoice I had thought that was referenced in there that
Through a different business account?
yeah, somebody got a direct check made to them.
Well, there were checks written from the business account to
Yeah.
other entities. So I don't know if you're thinking of the one. for
Well,
the
it's not
Cuddy
relevant.
Park.
I just wanted to know if there was a trend for sort of that offline check writing beyond the grant program driven funds, and it'd have to take a little bit more study. But if this is the only one you stumbled across, then perhaps it's
Well, for the business account, there were a number of checks written out of the business account to pay different expenses. And there were a number of checks put into the business account. So the business account has paid, for example, for some of the expenses
Yeah.
for the Cuddy Park celebration. And that was, as you said, offline.
Yeah, and I guess it's probably appropriate to talk about that, but I don't want to bypass Mike's presentation, so if you want to go all the way through, we'll come back.
There's just a couple more
You have
items
something
there.
else to add?
I did.
Ms. Gray Jackson has
Just a comment, okay? Keep in mind, as everybody knows, we have an independent audit that beginning right now, with some preliminary work. This is the kind of stuff, is gonna be identified in that outside audit. So hopefully, I was thinking of this one issue, well, actually, the whole thing needs to be cleared up, before then, so we don't have to visit this once again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
We did find that centennial items that were stored with the business coordinator in the garage, those items were returned. We went up, they were returned last week. We inventoried those items. We did some examples of what we found. There were 12 artist proofs, some banners, some polo shirts, unused Aces tickets for last season. And then just miscellaneous odds and ends, dog tags, swirl pops, candy bars. There was a funny one that was not on here. It was called Centennials.
Oh, I got some.
For the 100-year breath or something like
Yeah.
that. Now, we did stop by the Fur Ronde headquarters because our understanding was that there were things stored there. We stopped by there just earlier this week, and there is quite a bit of stuff stored there that is just in storage that we identified. I don't know, they were going to provide us an inventory of what was there. We have not yet received that. So there's stuff still over at Fur Ronde headquarters. There were some items that were sold and some refunds that were, some items that were returned for refunds in our previous memo. We were told that we were going to get we were told that those other things were miscoded. And the business coordinator was going to look into that. We haven't heard back. And that's basically our update.
the items either returned or out in the environment, is there still active items relating to the Centennial Program that are for sale, such as the Angry Jizz movie, the CDs, all of that, maybe clothing or whatever else? Where is that stuff at in terms of the retail vendors, and are they pre-buying those and selling them for markup, or what's the expectation on return to the municipality on future items sold?
There's, Todd Communications is still selling copies of the book, the Charles Wolford book, and we have a contract with them that the municipality receives a small percentage of the proceeds of the sale. Our last revenue check from that was received early November for around $7,000. That was since July. That was the only check that we had received from that. Artique does still have some of the commemorative prints, and we have an arrangement with Artique so that if they sell prints, we get a bit of revenue off that. And then Todd Hardesty, the producer of the film, also we have a contract with him, and we get sales reports so that we get proceeds off of his sales. I talked to him earlier this week. His sales are not robust. He does not have an active way to sell them. He's selling them at events and things like that. We were previously selling them on the online store. That online store was terminated before we came into office in July. So there's those 3 venues for selling merchandise right now.
Without being a lecture, I'm going to drift into the conversations as it relates to Ms. Duck and the continuing relationship with perhaps her company. I'm very cautious about besmirching somebody's reputation, particularly when that isn't the intention of this audit committee, isn't to put her on the spot. I would suggest that if we needed to get her beyond, Mike would say that she's very cooperative so far, and all the other stuff is occurring through information exchange. So there's nothing to believe that she's shut down an exchange of communication. But again, as with all municipal employees, there's a directive chain of where she gets her directives from. And I believe in a lot of cases she was acting at the authorities given to her. So in that lecture, I want to be cautious that when we ask questions about that, I have some, that we consider her role and place in all of this, and if it's necessary to move it forward, it's either done through formal assembly subpoena or some other more ramped up discussion beyond. That's not a threat, it's just that I believe right now the information exchange is still open. When is the last time you talked with her?
We talked with her about late November.
Yeah. And then the motivation to return the materials, was that just self-generated, do you suppose?
I don't know what the motivation was.
I spoke with her 2 weeks ago
Sure.
to make arrangements for those materials. And she returned them last Friday, I believe. So.
Was there ever evidence of a contract when she left employment with the city, let's call it that way, the administration change or that relationship that she had in program management? And my understanding is that she drifted into setting up her own company. There was a business account. You referenced it as a personal account, but it was actually in a business name then with the business license associated with it. Is that right? Duck and Associates, is that what it was?
Her business was in existence before.
I see, okay.
She didn't create it just for.
So 2 questions. Was there a sort of a continuing contract or even a verbal motivation for her to continue on managing the program, empowered to her by either Mayor Sullivan or Mayor Berkowitz? Do you have anything to add into how she was directed to continue or not continue?
Yeah. In conversations with both Susan Duck as well as with Visit Anchorage, the way they arranged it is that we had a contract with Visit Anchorage to then oversee a contract with Ms. Duck for her services between, I believe it was April 15th and June 30th.
Certainly. And you mentioned that was a Berkowitz-generated administration question, or was that the relationship that...
That's the relationship arranged prior to us coming into office.
So was there...
So we did not have a contract, and when we first came into office and started looking at the Centennial bills and started wondering why we were still getting bills, at that time she informed us that her contract was done at the end of July.
I see. All right, so that answers some of...
So she didn't have a contract with the Muni. She had a contract with Visit Anchorage, and the Muni funded Visit Anchorage for that purpose. So the Muni gave money to Visit Anchorage. Visit Anchorage then had a contractual relationship with Duck Enterprises.
All right, I got that now. That's much clearer from
So she was not a Muni contractor.
her responsibilities. And now, when she was under the employ of the municipal, and this, I just want to hear the answer again, is that when she was working, was she ever then a municipal employee? I guess that would be the question. She was.
She was.
So during the Sullivan administration, was she a municipal employee managing the Centennial program?
Yes,
Okay.
until I believe April 15th, when they then transferred her over to this contract.
All right, so these things that are in your audit findings actually happened throughout the course of the Centennial program, and then there's a finite number of questions, primarily outstanding invoices, that occurred after the Sullivan administration and/or Visit Anchorage no longer use that contract. Is it still an ongoing program? Do we still have beyond the, I mean, it obviously is with some of the sales still occurring and some of the.
I would say it's internally for the municipality, it is not an ongoing program. Externally it is, in that these products are out there and for
Yeah.
sale and people can still buy them. There are no longer any Centennial events. The last Centennial event was in July when the mayor from Whitby.
And that's a Visit Anchorage concern then in managing this, the book sales and the CDs, or?
I don't believe so. I think it's now back on us because, again, her contract was over with Visit Anchorage. So I believe Visit Anchorage believes that their contract is over and any management of the program is over, which my interpretation of that is that in general, the Centennial Commission and effort envisioned that it was over when that contract expires. Otherwise, they would have done a longer contract.
We neglected to take roll, we ought to now, so if you want to go ahead and start over on your side, we'll get, people keep joining the meeting, so.
Scott Lee, Municipal Anchorage Internal Audit.
Mike Chadwick, internal audit.
Suzanne Wood Green, the mayor's office.
Mike Abbott, city manager.
Robert Harris, CFO.
Bill Starr with the Assembly.
Amy DeBoski.
Ellie Gray Johnson.
Thanks for that. Sorry, I kind of lax in my meetings from that, and people can chime in typically. Go ahead.
I'm just waiting to get in queue.
There's no cue. Go ahead.
Okay. First, I want to say, and I've never properly asked, is it Fleet Green or Fleet or Green?
Fleet Green.
Fleet Green.
Automated.
Miss Fleet Green, I just first want to commend you on digging into this because this is the kind of stuff that gets completely under my skin, and I think you're asking the right questions, and I really appreciate it. So with saying that first, I want to get into some of the specifics, Mike, because we do have a fiduciary responsibility. I want to know first and foremost, has
an aside, the candy bars expire in April, I believe, of next year, so we don't, and there aren't that many of them. I think some of the items are very minimal, like the dog tags. I don't think there's going to be a lot of value there. I think the prints, we have 10 prints. There are 12 in the inventory, but 2 of them are due to sponsors of centennial events, so we need to deliver those 2 prints. So we have 10 that we could sell in several different ways.
Might be a good Christmas present, and if it was on eBay, I might even bid on it. So I'm just saying, it might be something to think about.
Yes, my understanding, I actually was looking into this, is that the municipality does not have an eBay account. So I'm not quite sure how we would do that.
We have
but-
pretty specific rules that govern how we sell stuff.
Yes.
Be through the purchasing department.
We do have an assembly meeting on Tuesday. I don't know, we would probably have to do an ordinance change, so we probably wouldn't attend, but my point is, especially when you're coming towards the end of the year, great minds get together and come up with good things, I'm sure. Our CFO is right here too, so.
If I can interrupt, can you determine the difference between sort of what I'll call swag, necklaces or something that's easily handed out, maybe even free, versus what would be those items of value?
I think the only items of value are the polo shirts and the prints.
And then
All the rest of it is swag.
how many
and I
books do we
believe
have
it was
left and how many CDs? Do you know any of those?
We don't have books or CDs. Those are being sold through outside vendors, and then we get a royalty off their.
Those are not our property.
So we're
Yeah.
not, we do not have those in our.
We get
possession.
royalty rights over the sale.
Right.
And any idea how much is still outstanding? Sorry.
I believe,
Anticipated revenues where I'm
Yeah,
You're
going.
going the same way.
Did you want to ask?
well, the audit report actually estimated that total of merchandise, maybe there could be $5,000 in revenue.
The merchandise that we own. The
The merchandise in general.
So that would include the stuff that we
Yes.
own, the prints and the shirts, and the anticipated royalties yet to be.
From the books and the
Okay.
videos.
Right,
All right.
from the books
Thanks
to
for that.
videos.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I have another idea, maybe not an eBay account, but is it possible for the municipal, because I see one of the problems here, and I understand to some degree why they went the route of using a business account. What fails me is why the CFO or the mayor or somebody like that didn't go down to Northrim and open up an account in the municipality's name. Is there a mechanism in which the CFO could go down, open up a Northrim account, and then set up a PayPal account in the municipality's name? Because he has, or the mayor himself, I mean, I don't care who it is, as long as it's the appropriate person, and set up an account in the municipality's name. What is the opportunity to do that? Because the issue that I have is putting public money
Into a private
into a
account.
private account.
Mhm.
That's a big issue with me. So is there a mechanism that anybody in the room knows about that we can do that?
Well, the Chairman Stokowski, obviously, if we were to try to set up this again, I think one of the avenues for fixing this kind of problem would be simply to create through the ordinance process a separate budget account within the books of the municipality. The money then goes into our cash account, we pay those bills just like we would anything else. I mean, we have the system in place, I think we can deal with this kind of situation fairly easily. And then I think you have an opportunity to have a fairly clear dividing line between, those kinds of people that are selling books or DVDs and then they're going to pay us royalty. That doesn't have to be enough books. If that royalty is received, then we have a way to receive it. But I think there are plenty of mechanisms within the municipality to deal with this. And
We
And
could
there
ask like
actually
credit
was-
card and other stuff right now. We wouldn't need a separate account.
There actually was a DEP ID created within the municipality in PeopleSoft for the centennial, and we have deposited money into that, the $7,000 that I referenced that we got from the book sales.
Can I ask-
is in that DEP ID.
It would appear that the conversation on the sort of the offline bookkeeping falls into that, because as opposed to, I'll back up a little bit, the monies appropriated by the assembly did in fact go into the municipal coffers. The check was written humanities form. So in quotes, the assembly authorized money used in public funds was properly accounted for to checks written in and through PeopleSoft. I get that. What I see is the offline dollars. Duck and Associates was funded directly from bridge builders and from the humanities forum. There was no no money that Mayor Sullivan signed off on a check. He signed off on the policy to accept that. Do you know why bridge builders would write a check to either to Visit Anchorage or to Duck and Associates? Do you know why $14,000 was written from bridge builders to Duck and Associates? And the same question for the humanities forum is, why were they essentially paying money to the program?
I believe that was for the bridge builders. I'd have to look back. I think that was a refund from a show. Now, both those checks that went into the account, those checks, there was a memo that went out. And I believe the statement in our original memo that those funds were approved by the former mayor to put into the account.
But they didn't come from the municipality per
No.
se, they were origin
revenues
funds.
from
Somewhere
activities,
else.
events, sales.
Yeah, that was my earlier memory jog, was that there was some other sort of offline deposits that occurred directly as opposed to passing through the municipality and then back into a Visit Anchorage account or empowered by that. Go ahead, Ms. Stembowski.
And I, listening to what Ms. Fleetgreen's saying, I mean, I agree, if it's revenues generated off of merchandise, that belongs to the municipality, it's still municipal revenue in my view. But, okay, so we talked about that. So if I'm reading this right, the remaining account balance in the business account is $4,436.09. Is that right?
As of the report.
As of the time of the report.
Okay, and so that money is in Miss Duck's control? And has anyone asked Miss Duck to write the municipality a check for the remaining balance?
We have not, because there are still outstanding invoices that Ms. Duck needs to pay, specifically the one for the Cuddy Park celebration. There's still outstanding, I believe, $23,000 owed to a vendor for that event that Ms. Duck is responsible for paying.
Okay, so help me understand, because I'm not 100% tracking. If essentially the municipality is responsible for the centennial, right? So we're going to have to pay all the bills when it rubber hits the road, right?
Well, on the $23,000 though, that invoice has not come to the municipality. That invoice went directly to Ms. Duck. So right now, that is not on my list of municipal owned, because my understanding, according to Ms. Duck, is she personally signed that contract with the vendor. And so she believes it is her responsibility to pay that.
So basically, even if the money's not there, she's going to shell out $20,000 to pay more.
I think she believes she will get more revenues from other sources.
Have you looked at that contract?
I actually don't know if I do have that. I might have that contract.
Okay.
I'd have to look through my files again to see if I got
Even
a
if
copy.
it's not today, the thing I'm going for here is, if in fact it's her responsibility, she's fine with paying it. Okay, we need to vet that. But if it's really something that the municipality should be paying, considering it, then I want to be fair about it. So I would just, even if it's not right now, I would love your analysis as to, do you really, I mean, I know maybe if she signed it, but if she was acting as a representative.
She signed, well, I understand where you're going, and
Yeah.
actually, I agree with you. She signed it when she was under contract with Visit Anchorage, so she was no longer a municipal employee at that time, but clearly that was a municipally centennial sponsored event.
Sure.
Mr. Dawson, through the chair, I believe that the contract actually states between the Centennial Committee and logistics, signed by the business coordinator.
So then that would be municipal, in my view. Just on that information, my first blush would be, we should probably take a look at counting that money as maybe potentially owing it. But I would love your analysis to look at that a little bit.
My
further.
first priority has been to
The ones
get
that
the
are
funds
in our-
that actually we have invoices directed to.
So from my perspective, I think if we answer that question about this contract, if she was acting, even if it's a contracting capacity as the business coordinator for the Centennial, if it was between the committee, I think we should consider starting to list that as an additional $23,000 invoice that has yet to be paid. But then that, I guess where I'm going is, it makes sense to me if we cross that first hurdle, just to ask her to turn over all money related, period. Just write us a check, get it in the municipal hands, and let's move forward. I would rather have the municipality in control of as much of the money that we can get in control of as sooner rather than later.
I'll interrupt just a little bit. I would rather start to expand the scope of the conversation, and I'll debate Ms. Dombrowski on this strategy, is that the Visit Anchorage has some oversight responsibilities, it sounds like, direct to the municipality and then down to Duck and Associates. So not only that, I still have some questions about Visit Anchorage's role in all of this. I don't see, unless Humanities Forum wrote checks directly to Visit Anchorage, did the municipality directly fund Visit Anchorage out of Centennial appropriations that you've seen?
Yes.
Yeah, they, to cover Ms. Duck's contract, there was a $48,500 grant written to Visit Anchorage in April.
That's in table 5 on page 9, note 2.
And I guess that's why I go back to the first hurdle we have to cross is evaluation of this $23,000 contract and to see whose liability it really is. Because Mr. Shaw might be right. There might be liability to Visit Anchorage, but it ultimately comes down to who engaged in the contract. Was it the Centennial Committee? And if that was the answer, then I would say the municipality has significant, responsibility.
Michael, was that one of the invoices that you sent me to review?
Yes.
Do you have printed copies of them here? You just have one copy of them.
There, one copy.
And that's the logistics one you're talking about?
I'll
He
hurry up.
has it.
Okay,
So,
that
no,
would
there's no
help.
hurry. You can look at the invoice.
Oh, that would help. Well, I don't want to dominate the conversation, so I'll just
You're
wrap
doing
this up.
fine.
Okay. So I think, I personally am only one member of the committee, but I think it's reasonable to say if we cross that hurdle, if any money left over in that account should really come back to us, because I personally would rather have the municipality control it. When it comes to the ACEs, so I originally, again, I haven't read word for word the new memo because I just got it this morning, but it looks like the VIP passes came back to the municipality. Is there an expiration date on those? I'm thinking those could be another easy item, just saying. Okay, I'll just move on from that. Additionally, I'm confused. Did you come across an advertising contract? What exactly did we get for the money to advertise with the ACEs?
Mr. Dombrowski, to the chair, the contract was for $14,000 for advertising, $14,000. And it was for the 2015-16 season,
Which is after the Centennial.
which is after the Centennial. It was entered into in April, as I recall. And it did not go through the purchasing process.
But the tickets are for the 2014.
The tickets,
15 season.
correct, the tickets that were returned that we found were for the 2014-15 season. And the inventory of those tickets, and some of the tickets were removed, some were still in the booklets. Kind of mismatch, right?
So, how many tickets are we talking about?
Tickets left over.
No, in general, like how many were there, how many were used, how many were not used? Do we know who used them? Do we have that information?
I do, we did take an inventory of the unused tickets, and I have that if you want us to do that.
And my understanding from Ms. Duck is that the tickets were given to different departments to use for employees. I don't have a record of that,
Yeah.
of who was given tickets, but that's what Ms. Duck informed us.
That just seems crazy.
And the VIP pass, I have not seen that, so I don't.
Well, this is.
And I assume that it too is expired.
And one of the things that I'm thinking in my mind, just in my business mind, is thinking the unused tickets that we have with the ACEs, I think a follow-up discussion needs to be had. Number one, what did we get for our advertising money? Because it seems strange that we bought advertising for an event after the event has happened.
Well, I would have to talk to the auditor, but the invoices that we got from the ACEs were sent in February and March of this year. So I think the advertising is over and done with. It's not for the 16 season. It was
Yeah,
all
Ms.
for
Cox's signature's not on that one, so remember, she was working as an employee then, so not necessarily her approval.
That'll be interesting to go back on because the review states that the advertising was for the 15-16 season,
Yeah, I think it's just for 15 part of the 15-16 season.
like the early part. Okay. So it'll just be, yes, mine.
I have an answer to your question
Okay.
on the number of ACES tickets that we inventoried. We inventoried, there were 10 books of tickets. Each book contained a coupon for an advertisement discount and then 9 ACES tickets. So in the 10 books that we looked
So
at,
90 tickets.
there were 66 tickets in those books. So 66 minus 90.
66.
And then 7 coupons that we inventoried. 7 coupons and 66 tickets.
Okay. So my thought is here, there are a couple things. We need an itemized understanding of what we bought for advertising from the ACEs. But also, I would go back to the ACEs and try to renegotiate basically and say, hey, there's 66 unused tickets. Can you give them to us for the next season? And then maybe we can sell those, or we can do something, but that's one way I go. Okay, the last two items that sorry.
I have just one other clarification on the VIP lounge passes. Those were for game 35 for April 10th, 2015. We found 6 of those that we
Is there a,
unused. 6 unused VIP lounge passes for game 35.
do you know what the cash value or the value of those VIP passes are?
No, I don't.
Okay.
But the contract says total ticket allowance based on percentage of advertising, $3,625.
Yeah. That's why I still don't have a good answer for what we actually bought the advertising for. But nonetheless, am I just imagining this? This is the last thing on the actual merchandise. I thought I went into a Walmart and I saw Centennial stuff at a Walmart in town. I was pretty sure I did. Am I
Centennial product?
Yeah. Am I imagining that?
I don't know. I'd have to contact Ms. Duck and see if I've not seen any contracts where goods would be sold there, but I could ask her that.
I just seem to recall a few months ago, like it kind of got my attention because I thought, oh wow, look at that. But okay, I just want to see if you came across it. Okay, the last couple things that I'll say are, it's relieving to me.
Are these findings from your perspective or are there questions? Ms.
They're
Campbell?
questions.
Okay. Just would like them packaged as a question if you don't mind.
I was just gonna say it's sorry you got mouth shut.
Yeah, we're going to start to run out of time here,
No.
so I also want to give some guidance to the committee here.
It's relieving to me that you say that you haven't yet come across evidence of criminal, just basically sloppy bookkeeping and practices. But since your memo, I know, can you remind me how many times the municipality has contacted Alaska Destination Specialists in regard to this $19,000 that was paid to them that we're not sure they should have?
Mr. Dombrowski, to the chair, the purchasing department was the one who initiated that contact.
there appears to me that there's a responsiveness issue, specifically with ADP. I think it sounds like Mr. has been cooperative, but we do need to close up those loose ends. And because of that, I think we have to go down each one of these rabbit holes, basically, to make sure we have resolution. It was my recommendation to the chair last week that the Assembly does utilize its subpoena powers, specifically with ADP, is it, well, I'm talking two different things at the same time. I was going to go on to the stuff in a second. So ADP.
You mean visit Anchorage?
No, wait. No.
Alaska destination.
Yes.
Oh,
ADS.
Oh, sorry, ADS. Sorry. I'm saying the wrong thing. So ADS, Alaska Destination Services, is that what it's called? Specialists, sorry. So Alaska Destination Specialists. And the reason being, if the municipality has engaged this entity multiple times to try to figure out if in fact they have $19,000 of money that belongs to the municipality and they're not responding, the next option is basically for the Assembly to subpoena them, bring them in and ask them questions. And I think that's appropriate in this case, and that was my recommendation to the chair.
The PAC would have had some sort of invoice, so can you ask the PAC what they paid on? I mean, they wouldn't have done it on a phone call, I don't imagine.
It was
So
an email.
The PAC wrote a check for something, so there had to be an invoice attached to that, I would imagine. They couldn't just.
Mike
write a
Gaglione
check.
can respond, because there was an email that,
We did visit with the PAC, and they were directed by the municipality to send that $19,000 to Alaska Destination Special.
So they just wrote a check and sent it in the mail with no invoice attached or?
My understanding.
Okay, well, I'm gonna.
That was our revenue
from the event.
from the event, and we as a municipality directed them to send that revenue to Alaska Destination Special.
Okay. I have a question about the ability to be paid twice. Anchorage Downtown Partnership got a direct grant from somebody. Let me see who they got. Anchorage Downtown Partnership got a direct grant from ConocoPhillips for $15,000, and yet they're still claiming that they are owed by the municipality the same amount for services rendered at a downtown requirement. Is there any way to know that the $15,000 Conoco was that? So in essence, what you're saying is downtown partnership provided perhaps even $30,000 of the services.
For the solstice event.
So was there billed for the event $30,000 co-shared by Conoco and billed for the balance to the municipality then, or is it entirely possible that their bill was only $15,000 and Conoco covered the whole thing?
Conoco gave them 35, right?
Actually, the front page has Anchorage Downtown Partnership provided $15,000 of the services for Solstice Concert, which
To the
I matched
museum.
up to
To the meeting.
I'm sorry, yeah, 35,000 went to.
Yeah, according to table 2, there's $60,000 of income to ADP from AT&T, ConocoPhillips, and Alaska Airlines.
Yeah, and so none of that money covers the cost of running the Solstice events. Have you looked at what they actually provided?
For the entire event.
Well, yes. I'm trying to zero in on the
well-
invoices due that the Assembly is going to consider on Tuesday. That's one of
There
them.
was not a contract with ADP laying out the scope of work for what would be provided.
Yeah.
So we don't have that, but it was a very large event. We could ask ADP for an accounting of how their entire budget for that event was spent, if that's what the Assembly would like.
Well,
But at the end of the day, if we agreed to pay them $15,000, if they got 4 people to pay them $15,000, I mean,
it should be covered.
well, good on them.
Well,
We still have a
perhaps.
commitment to do it. We don't control how much they, if we said we're gonna give you $15,000 and didn't prohibit them from seeking
I don't
rights money
disagree
from others.
Mr. Abbott, what we were led to believe through the initial request from the mayor's office, Sullivan, was that what was going to happen was they were actively going to seek out those grants. So I doubt that Downtown Partnership called up kind of filter says, hey, help us. I suspect that came through the mayor's office and that, because that
Could
was,
be.
and you look at the minutes of our meeting, he's already came to us saying, hey, we got matching funds from Rasmussen, and it's a big surprise that BP's gonna help us and all that. That was the mayor's presentations. I'm back to, do we in fact, have legitimate services rendered over and above it? Downtown Partnership got paid a fair amount of money, and they're still saying for $15,000. That's the.
Although that was a very large event. I mean, if you look at the Cuddy Park event, the total cost, I believe, was $80,000 for that one-day event at Cuddy Park. So.
But isn't Logistics Inc. invoice related to that same event?
Yes,
with
no,
the
I'm just
tents and all that
saying, if
stuff?
you look at a comparable event and
Yeah.
the cost of putting on an event like that, a total of $60,000 to put on the Solstice concert downtown.
Well, but Logistics Inc. is on top of that too.
No, well, Logistics
Not for
Inc.
the
is
Solstice.
only for
Oh,
Cuddy Park.
I was
So the
confused.
we're talking two different events,
All right, fair enough.
one downtown, one in Cuddy Park.
Okay,
So-
Ms. Gray Jackson had her hand up for some
I
comments
think
and then I'd like to end.
It is not surprising that an event like
Cost that
the one that they put on downtown would cost in the range of $60,000.
Okay, well, if they have an itemized invoice for their $15,000 request, I'd like to see it. It's not part of your packet, is it, Michael?
The $15,000, we have that, we just have the invoice, but not the 50, just for the 50,000.
Itemized services
Yeah.
rendered would be great. I'm sure they're a legitimate bookkeeping entity and probably have these things occurred and balanced is 15,000. So if you could get me that by Tuesday's meeting, that'd be helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, a comment and a question, I guess. A lot of questions. Anyway, since chart of account and not done by ordinance, I'm really glad to see that at least they did create an account for the centennial, okay? But we should have followed the policies and procedures within the house, and they didn't. The QuickBooks issue, okay? The coordinator, business coordinator, needs to either delete it from her machine and return the QuickBooks to the municipality, or pay for it. So that needs to be addressed as far as I'm concerned also. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'm gonna, I don't typically vote in committees, that's not just today, I don't take those, so the requirement to do something next, I think the committee fleshes out the details and tries to provide information to the assembly overall, so the idea would be that come Tuesday, I think you want to have your comments prepared. I'll generally speak about what happened at the audit committee meeting, but I'm going to leave it up to the assembly in total to decide what to do next, including a deeper forensic audit or line item audit. I had accuracy items on the outstanding invoices, including the comment I just made to you is a summary of services due compared to what they're asking for payments. The unreconciled revenue, we just got to check in all the other stuff that goes in with that. Is that going to directly go back to the fund balance accounts that we're paying the $63,000 or $69,000 out of fund balance, i.e., public dollars. So I would want the $7,000 of public money or remaining to go back into that same, continue to reduce it. So that's where I go with that. I'd also like some accountability back to Visit Anchorage, which we haven't seemed to have. So if you could give me the contact information of Visit Anchorage, if you haven't talked to them at length, I'd like to have that. We seem to be focusing on Ms. Duck, certainly her relationship with the Mayor Sullivan and work made a difference, but I think Visit Anchorage has some accountability to what the empowerment was as well, and I think that hasn't been brought up enough on my behalf. So if there's outstanding invoices that you have a question on, the ACES is a good one. We could bifurcate and just get them going, if that's the case.
Can I finish one of my thoughts? I forgot it. I'm sorry, I got messed up. Number one, I just want to ask Mike, do you have invoices for all of these amount owed?
Yes.
Okay, and can you provide those? I don't mind reading them after the committee meeting.
Yes.
I just want to look at them.
Sure.
And that, like I said, I'm obviously going to have an issue with the Alaska ACES one, not because I have an issue with the ACES, it's just because I don't feel there's enough information yet as to what we actually bought and paid for and didn't get it. And so that's one of those ones I'm familiar with many of these other ones, I think. So, but I do want to see the invoices for those. But I want to ask you too, we're coming up on the BDO, the audit, the big audit that's coming up. And when we look at an issue like this, I personally believe that this was a review. It wasn't an actual audit. So from your perspective, and you can take the fifth if you want, from your perspective, would it be appropriate to request an audit? What kind of audit? Do you think it can be done in conjunction with the BDO audit, or should it be an independent third party? Those are a lot of questions in one.
I've already answered that. I've asked that question to BDO, so I can provide that answer. Generally, there's a special study opportunity for that expanded audit. It won't necessarily capture the BDO audit. Generally, won't capture anything beyond. It may pick up the outline book entries, normal business accounting procedures, compliance with GASB rules, that kind of stuff. Ms. Dembowski is generally inquired, but we're going to have to expand the scope of their contract if you would want a special study area. A forensic audit is outside the scope of what the BDO contract that we have would be. That a forensic audit is basically the underlying with criminal intent is probably why they do that. They would bring people in from out of state to do that. They don't have the capacity to do it locally. The auditor that works for us, I talked with her just last week, and she's comfortable expanding the scope of the audit for a special study, but it would be nothing more than perhaps an additional page on a management comment letter.
Sure, and I guess that's really not giving me. The context helps, but it's really not giving me a definitive answer that I was looking for.
Our own folks can provide it if you want a line item
Well,
listing through
I'd like to
Peter's
hear the auditor respond, if possible.
He won't know the BDO conversation.
The chair just said, what's your question?
No, my comment is from your professional perspective. You've gone through the BDO audit multiple times. You understand the staff time it takes to assist in that audit. When you see a review like this, as our municipal independent our auditor, what would your recommendation for the next step be? Would it be to incorporate this into the BDO thing, understanding the questions that have come out of this committee with very specific what happened in this instance, what happened in that instance? Do you think we'll get the answer what we're looking for if we expand the BDO audit? Or would your recommendation be to answer questions like that, go to a third-party independent audit? And if so, what kind?
It's really a management decision. It's not really a decision that would be in our will. I can tell you that going with BDO to do a forensic audit would probably be very costly. They would probably be pulling folks from New York and from Los Angeles, if I recall. So we'd be incorporating travel, lodging, all those types of expenses. The question comes down to, is the cost of an audit worth the cost of paying the invoices? Cost benefit type of analysis would have to be done. I do know that BDO always looks at the internal control structure of an organization. And those internal controls are always set up, well, not always, but they're set up to protect not only the municipality, but they're also set up to protect the individual, the employee, and also to protect the taxpayers. So they, during the course of their normal audit, like they do every year, the financial audit, they look at that internal control structure. So
Okay.
Yeah, this will be added to the
Those are
agenda.
free.
This report, Michael, if you could be sure you're at the meeting on Tuesday, and also please request a visit Anchorage for us to show up for that. There may be questions from the assembly on that. And further action, acceptance of this comments and these reports will be on Tuesday's meeting, as well as the item for approval on the outstanding invoices will be back on the agenda for us on Tuesday. That's all. Thank you very much for coming.